Hello, councillors. I'm here. Roll call. Councillor Bob Adams.
Present.
Councillor David Bellamy.
Present.
Councillor Harish Bijna Singh.
Present.
Councillor Helen Crawford.
Present.
Councillor Phil Dilks.
Present.
Councillor Mike Exton.
Present.
Councillor Penny Mills.
Present.
Councillor Charmaine Morgan is still not here. Is that correct? Yep. Councillor Robert Reid.
Present.
Councillor Rosemary Cabery Brown.
Rosemary, are you with us? Rosemary? Okay, move on, Susan. The next item is not a vital one, so...
Councillor Ian Selby.
I am now present, if you can hear me. Sorry, I was on hold earlier. I couldn't resume into the call, but I am now present if you want me to.
Chris.
Thank you. Yep. Sorry. Councillor Ian Selby.
I believe Councillor Selby has left the meeting due to ill health.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Councillor Jackie Smith.
Jackie.
Thank you.
All right. I have to unmute it so that you can hear.
Yeah. Okay, Jackie. Thank you.
Yeah.
Rosemary, has Rosemary got back yet, Susan?
No.
I've messaged IT chairman and hopefully they will be able to sort that out for her.
Okay. And I assume we're back on recording.
We certainly are.
Yeah. Okay.
And Councillor Judy Smith.
Present.
Thank you. That's all, Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, so we move on to application 0534, which is really just to note the decision of the inspectorate. Chris.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, I've loaded up my presentation. I'd be grateful if you could let me know when this is available to view.
It's available on my screen.
Excellent, thank you. I'll try and be brief on this one, Chairman, if that's okay.
Please. Yes, please.
So this application is for erection of a single-storey side and rear extension, part retrospective, and is a revised scheme of two previous proposals. This application, S2534, was previously considered by Planning Committee in August this year. It was recommended by officers for refusal and was agreed by members to refuse. Just in terms of a quick recap, so the key issues were impact on neighbouring residential amenity and impact on the character and appearance of the area. The site is located to the southwest of Grantham, close to that red dot there. That's the aerial view of the site, red line of the site. That was the previous view, so prior to any works to the extension from 44 Huntley Avenue. That's the view, a close-up view now of the extension as built to the rear of 44 Huntley Avenue. And again, as built from the internal view of 44 Huntley Avenue. This is sort of a zoomed out sort of planned version of the extension, again, as built. This is the proposed alteration through this application, S2534, now adding a pitch roof to the side of the single-storey element only. The previous existing floor and elevation plan, site plan showing the proposed pitch roof, the proposed floor and elevation plan now as proposed through this application, S2534. And again, then the existing proposed elevation plans there. So what happened with this application is it was recommended for refusal by officers. That was agreed by members in August. However, before the decision notice was issued, we received the appeal back from the planning inspectorate. So the applicant rather appealed the previous application, which was reference S19 at 2242, which is effectively the extension as currently built, and also the appealed the related enforcement notice. The inspector agreed that the proposal as built, so S192242, was harmful to 44 Huntley Avenue, and therefore dismissed the appeal on that basis, on the harm to 44 Huntley Avenue. However, the applicant submitted the plans to the inspector as part of this application S2534, which was currently pending consideration at the time. Whilst the inspector dismissed the appeal against S192242, the inspector, however, did consider that the revised plans submitted through S2534 were acceptable. So I've included a quote there from paragraph 22 of the appeal at the bottom of your screens there, so suggesting that this would significantly reduce the height of the elevation of the common boundary, removing the overbearing visual impact and improving the relationship between the host bungalow and the addition. So effectively, the inspector has amended the enforcement notice. The enforcement notice has now been amended, so it requires the applicant to effectively undertake the works proposed through S2534. The date for that implementation is on the additional items paper, so it's the 2nd of June 2021, which is 9 months taken from the date of the appeal decision that they're allowed to do those works. So from an officer's point of view, reluctantly, Chairman, we're now coming back to committee because the application is still pending. However, the recommendation has now changed to approval to be in line with the inspector's decision. I'll hand back to you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chris. Are there any questions for Chris? Is there any reason for debate, members? Can we go straight to a vote?
Straight to a vote. I don't think we've got much alternative, have we?
I don't think we have, Jackie. Is that moving the recommendation, Jackie?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll second it if there's nobody else. Okay, I'll second it. Can we move to the vote then, please? There's no indication of questions or people wanting a debate. Are you content with that, members?
Could we just clarify that on in the papers for today, the addendum, that the recommendation is wrong on the. I appreciate the changing circumstances and everything, but the recommendation does appear that the application is refused.
Yeah, I think what Chris has said is that the planning inspector's decision came after this paper was submitted. Is that right, Chris?
Yes, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Dilks. So I think that's a copy over from when it's been to committee previously, Councillor Dilks. The recommendation is now set out in this report at 3.5. It's now as approved, subject to the following conditions. There's only the two conditions. So one's the time limit for completion, which is recommended to be amended. That's an additional items paper with a change of date there. And then secondly, the approved plans.
Yeah, thank you for that. I just wanted to be absolutely clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Any other questions of clarity or anything? So it's been proposed by Jackie Smith. I'll second it. Can we move to a vote?
To clarify, Chairman, Councillor Helen Crawford is not able to vote on this item. Is there anybody else, please? No.
Thank you for asking that, Susan.
This is application S20/0534 with recommendation for permission. Councillor David Bellamy?
For.
Councillor Harish Bishnah Singh?
For.
Councillor Phil Dilks?
Reluctantly for.
Councillor Mike Exton?
For.
Councillor Penny Milnes?
For.
Councillor Robert Reid? Councillor Mrs Rosemary Cabry Brown?
For.
Councillor Ian Selby?
He's left.
Oh, he's left, apologies.
Okay.
Councillor Jackie Smith?
Jackie, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah. I was just waiting for you to answer that you got it.
She's asking you for your vote, Jackie.
Got it.
Can you unmute yourself, Jackie, and say whether you're for or not?
Yeah. For.
Thank you, Jackie.
Councillor Mrs Judy Smith?
For.
Back with you, Chairman.
And Councillor Bob Adams.
Reluctantly for.
Thank you. That's 10 for.
And none against.
None against.
Thank you, Susan. Can we now move on to S191784? This is in the hands of Phil Jordan, and we have two speakers here, County Councillor Sue Woolley and the applicant. Phil?
Chairman, sorry, it's Martha. I need to be put in the waiting room and we need to swap to Mandy Braithwaite for this item.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you've got to leave us, haven't you? I beg your pardon. Are you there, Mandy? Mandy Braithwaite? Okay, let me try and see if I can get hold of Mandy on the phone or somebody. We can't proceed without Mandy.
I've just sent her an email, Chairman. Oh, she's commented in the chat, Chairman, that she can't get her video to work.
Can you speak to me, Mandy? Can you hear us?
Chairman, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you, Mandy.
Brilliant. Somebody has now allowed me in. So yes, I am here. I was here. So yes, thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you for that.
Can I be removed to the waiting room then, please, Chairman, by the clerk?
Yes, if you just leave the meeting, and then it should allow you to wait, come back into the meeting, into the lobby.
Thank you. I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Thank you, Mandy. Yes, we can see you now as well, Mandy. Okay.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, can we proceed? Phil, have you got your presenter's badge back?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. And I've just tried to share the presentation, so if you just let me know when that's on your screen.
That is on the screen now, as far as it's on my screen.
Yeah, it is too, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, and good afternoon, members. This next application is S191784. It's an outline application including details of a new vehicular access for up to 71 dwellings, occupation space and associated infrastructure in land off Folkingham Road, Morton. I'm Phil Jordan, Principal Planning Officer at South Stephen, if anyone new's joined the meeting since this morning. So, sorry, Chairman, as well, just a point, the applicant's agent, Lynette Swinburne, did contact me, as I don't think she was listed as a public speaker this morning, but she was included on the list of public speakers, and the script was submitted and circulated yesterday. Can you just confirm you've got her down to speak?
Sorry, yes, I have got it down to speak, Phil, yes.
Sorry if I've missed that from earlier on.
No problem.
Thank you. So yeah, I'll just run through a sort of brief presentation. We actually did the site visit for this site back in August. The application was deferred for consideration of some further highway input and is now coming back before us for this meeting. So the key issues with the development are the principle of development, affordable housing and market housing need of the area, impact on the character of the area, residential amenity impacts, highways and transport infrastructure, flood risk issues, ecology and biodiversity, the provision of open space, and then the other provisions of the legal agreement, which include education, health, and bus service contributions for this application. But I'll run through that in a bit more detail as the presentation goes on. So the site itself is located to the northeast of village of Morton, which in itself is to the north of Bourne. You'll see on the plan there the site's roughly outlined there in with a red line. To the south of the site is the main road through the high street that runs through the village, and largely the services and facilities within Moreton are on that side of the road, including the school, the village hall, and so on. The exception being the new co-op, which is on the other side of the A15. So again, this just shows the red line of the site a little bit more accurately. You can see the proposed access to the site there off High Street, and the sort of extended red line that the site would cover, including the vehicular access to the A15. This is a indicative layout that's been submitted with the application to give an idea of sort of how 71 houses would look within the site. These details are just indicative. The details of layout, landscaping, scale and appearance are all reserve matters. But you can see by providing 71 houses on the site, it's a fairly low density scheme, and allows for a significant amount of open space both to the south and to the sort of the northeast of the site. And that was seen as, that's one of the provisions of the allocation in the local plan for this site, which is a means of buffering the new development against the existing countryside and the main part of the village to the south. It is worth noting that part of the village to the south is the fairly historic part of the village. Within the conservation area, it does include listed buildings as well. Yeah, I think just while I'm on that plan as well, I mean, one of the omissions or changes from when we visited the site in August was, just where my cursor is here, you can see it to the southwest of the site. There was shown to be a secondary footpath connection. That was just shown as a sort of indicative connection onto the A15, and one of the issues with delivering that was that it would have involved crossing a very short strip of third-party land before connecting into the existing pavement, and it wasn't considered to be an essential part of the delivery of the site. The allocation requires a new pedestrian and cycleway connectivity to High Street, which is along the route of the existing public right-of-way. And so that secondary footway access that was previously shown indicatively was removed. So these are some of the photos looking back towards the village. Again, members will recall from the site, it's a fairly considerable distance between where the start of the new housing would be proposed and the looking back towards the village. This is a view in the same sort of direction, just further looking further round to the right as you look back towards the site. This is looking north, pretty much where where most of us walked to on the site visit, where the public right-of-way joins the entrance to the field. You can see from the picture there, it's currently, just sort of pasture land, countryside that's adjacent to the existing settlement. And that's obviously a picture of the co-op that I usually say has been recently completed, but it's been there for at least a couple of years now in the village. And again, you can see that pedestrian refuge which has been added to assist with that safe crossing point to the co-op. So yeah, a bit of a sort of overview. The site is allocated for residential development in the local plan. development of the site would provide 71 new dwellings. The applicants agreed to terms of a Section 106 agreement, which would provide 30% of that as affordable. The details of that would be secured by a legal agreement. Scale, layout, appearance, and landscaping, as I've already said, they're all reserve matters. The new vehicular access off the A15, that's been assessed by the Highway Authority and is considered to be acceptable in highway safety terms. Would be the provision of the pedestrian and cycle connectivity to the village, to High Street. The fundamental sort of detail around can the site be drained effectively has been fairly extensively looked at, and we required some sort of significant updates to the flood risk assessment. The drainage is considered to be acceptable in principle, and we've secured the final details of the both the foul water drainage scheme and the surface water drainage scheme by condition. Again, in terms of ecology, we've got some pretty detailed baseline studies that have been submitted with the application, and we've secured further biodiversity enhancements that will be linked to the recommendations in those reports by condition. The open space amounts to be provided within the site, which would include an equipped play area and future maintenance arrangements. Again, they would all be included within the legal agreement. And then the requested amounts of infrastructure provision that this would bring, the education contribution, well, you can see the figure there, just over 415,000. That's split between primary, secondary and sixth form education. A significant amount of that goes towards the primary school within Moreton Village. That's over £150,000. An NHS contribution of £46,860, and a contribution of £30,000 to extend the existing bus service that runs through the village and to provide some additional capacity there. So in summary, the application is an allocated site within the local plan. It's recommended for approval, subject to the conditions in the main report and prior to completion of the Section 106 agreement. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Phil. Just before I invite the speakers to come forward for clarification, I think you said at the beginning of your presentation it was deferred at the last meeting. I think you meant to say it was withdrawn, wasn't it?
Yeah, sorry if that wasn't clear. It was withdrawn from the agenda before we'd actually
discussed it.
It wasn't discussed or debated. It was on the agenda. We did the site visit, and then it was withdrawn before it was actually discussed at the meeting.
Yes, I just asked that for clarity because some members might think they can't vote on the application by virtue of it being deferred, etc., if they weren't here. But every member of the committee is hearing this for the first time and is entitled to vote when we get to that. So thank you for that clarification, Phil. Could I invite District Councillor Sue Woolley, please?
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. I wish to declare that I'm both County Councillor and District Councillor for the area the proposed application covers. I'm a resident of the village, but will only be raising points other residents have asked me to make you aware of. Some of those residents have welcomed the proposal, however, the majority have not. The development would be accessed off the A15 to the north of the village, just beyond a very busy crossroads. The road is the main commuter route to Peterborough in the south. The present speed limit is 40 miles an hour on the A15 through the village, and it is feared the increased traffic from the development will exacerbate an already busy junction at the crossroads. If the application is successful, then there needs to be a separate right turn lane on the A15 into the development. As already mentioned, the speed limit through the village on the A15 is 40 miles an hour, and I continue to campaign with residents for a drop in that speed limit to 30 miles per hour. If this application were to be successful, then there must be a caveat of 30 miles an hour beyond the present speed limit and beyond the development. There have been a number of fatal and life-changing accidents at the crossroads. The parish clerk has a record of approximately 10 recent bumps and shunts by vehicles at the four-way junction. Thankfully, these haven't resulted in serious injuries, but do show what a busy and dangerous road the A15 is at this point. I understand walking access from the development would be via a public footpath onto the high street, which would mean a pedestrian crossing would be required to the north of the crossroads in order to give residents from the proposed development safe access to the co-op sited on the southwest of the crossroads. If accepted, this proposal falls within the local plan. Residents have asked how the committee will assure itself this proposal is in the interest of the community. Residents want to have the opportunity to remain independent and living in the village for longer. This could be achieved by building bungalows on this site, potentially freeing up many 3- and 4-bedroom houses already in the village. It is noted as already mentioned, a public footpath will provide ease of access to the village high street, post office, bus stops and a safe walking route to the village primary school. However, the school is popular and is reaching capacity and so will shortly need further classrooms. Residents do not want to see children from the village having to access schooling elsewhere. Residents are particularly disappointed this development has not been discussed in conjunction with another recently approved application of 22 entry-level houses, as I'm sure the committee will recall just recently. Should both developments take place, approximately 100 houses will have been given the approval to be built in one village. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Sue. Could I ask Lynette Swinburne, please, on behalf of the applicants?
Thank you. Hang on. There we are. Thank you very much. Chair, committee members and officers, my name's Lynette Swinburne and I'm a Chartered Town Planner and the agent for this application, which has been submitted on behalf of Lincolnshire County Council's corporate property team. The application for this site off the A15 in Moreton represents the culmination of a process that we have worked closely with the District Council to bring forward for development. The application was prepared following the receipt of pre-application advice from the Council, which has guided and informed the proposals before you. In summer 2019, an event was held in Moreton where our team engaged with the local residents to discuss their comments about the emerging scheme. In January 2020, I attended the District's Planning and Design meeting to talk through the proposals and receive feedback from a wide range of consultees. As you know, the site is a housing allocation in the recently adopted local plan, and the principles of policy LVH9 have guided the illustrative scheme for the site and are embedded in the proposals before you. In addition to the usual supporting and technical information you'd expect to accompany an application for 71 new homes, we've also included a set of design principles, a suggestion from the planning and design meeting as part of the submission. These principles are intended to provide a link between the outline permission and any future applications on the site to ensure that they seek to maintain the same good practice. The scheme would deliver 71 new homes, 30% of which would be affordable, 21 houses, and the scheme proposes a generous amount of public open space, which is focused around the existing public rights of way. This would be secured by legal agreement and represents a minimum of 3,400 square metres of open space and 511 square metres of children's play space. I won't take you through the other contributions, as I think the case officer has already done that, but obviously there will be contributions towards the primary school and secondary school and local NHS practice. I hope this is a helpful overview of the development and the journey that we've been on to reach this point. The scheme is an important element in delivering the aims, aspirations and targets of the local plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lynette. We now move on to questions. Are there any questions for the applicant's agent, please? Can I just pick up on a point that Councillor Woolley made, Lynette, and that was the question of bungalows?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Lynette. Yep.
At this stage, there's no details about the housing mix. We're simply the number of units, and the detailed mix will come forward through reserved matters.
Okay, so perhaps the point that Councillor Woolley made could be addressed in terms of bungalows?
Absolutely, as and when it comes to bringing forward and developing the scheme, that there could be a whole range of houses on there, and I suppose that will really be part of that discussion and debate at that time.
Super. Are you happy with that, Councillor Woolley?
I will be, as long as it takes place and they actually get built. It will be great. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we'll have to make sure that does happen. Right, members, are there any other questions to the applicant agent, to Lynette?
Chairman, I'd indicated.
Oh, sorry, I've not put I beg your pardon, Phil. I haven't put the chat box up. I have now, and fire away, Phil.
Yes, thank you, Lynette. I mean, it's having listened to Councillor Woolley and having stood on the footpath at Morton on the A15 in relation to the exception site visit that we had. It really hits you how busy and how thundering, if I can use that term, the lorries come through that village, and all the villages, I've got to say, in that what I call the A15 corridor. But my question really is can you just address the access question off the A15, and are we confident it's going to be, quote, safe? And then also, Councillor Woolley did raise a very valid point, if I can say, about the speed limit, not just through the village, but I'm aware, having used to some years ago make regular visits to Lincoln, approaching Morton from the north is, it's from a very fast area. It's a very fast road, and then you come to a bend in the road, and suddenly you're in Morton. And so can you address those points? Thank you.
Lynette, could you unmute yourself?
Yeah, sorry, apologies. Okay. I worked out how to do the camera and the microphone at the same time. Yes, so thank you. And the highways issue, it's come about through public consultation. We were aware from the consultation event, and obviously through the subsequent discussions we've had. And so we have been back, and we've pushed our highways consultants quite hard to confirm that we are satisfied, very satisfied, that the access solution proposed, so the access into the site, is safe and reflects the speed of vehicles on that road. So we have gone back and re-asked the question several times to our consultants and with the highway authority as well. And so we are confident that the technical data and the specification put forward is suitable for a scheme such as this.
Can I just ask a supplementary? Just going back to Councillor Woolley's point about a right-hand turn. I'm trying to find where she mentioned that. Can you pick that point up, Lynette?
Yeah, sure, certainly. Again, we are aware of this as a potential matter that might be raised or been raised in the past, and again we've pushed back on our highways consultants to say what are the triggers for that. And my understanding is that although the road is busy and I appreciate the vehicle movements, they do not fall within the parameters. And I'm not a highway engineer, but highways engineers very much work on data. They are engineers and they work on the modelling and things like that, and they have run the figures, and this seems quite comfortably outside of what you would need for a right-hand turn. I mean, that's my interpretation, again, not a highway engineer, but that's certainly my understanding.
Thank you, Lynette. Perhaps the real trigger is Councillor Woolley.
Yes, well, we'll see.
Turn my microphone off as soon as I said that. We're dealing with. Are there any more questions to Lynette? There's 2 or 3 to the case officer. Are there any more questions for Lynette?
Chair, I'd like to ask a question to Councillor Woolley.
So yeah, that's fine. I've got that there, Robert. It's to Lynette that we're looking at, the applicant's agent.
Can I ask a question, please, Mr. Chairman, to Lynette?
You can indeed. Make sure it's a question and not a speech, please.
No.
Sorry, Harry.
It's a question. Lynette, hi. Thank you very much for your presentation. with regard to continuing from Councillor Fields, because I'm very concerned with that road, the main road, the A15 that goes through it, the traffic thunders pass. In the previous application, we made the point with regard to the safe crossing for pedestrian. And here we get a far bigger site in the north side. People will have to cross to access a co-op shop. Are there any possibility to have a proper crossing, that's a raised crossing, to like a flyover for people to safely cross over? Which provide for both sides on it. And secondly, with regard to the open space that is provided, which is welcome, will there be any play equipment for children's, safe play equipment to be installed at the time?
Thank you, Harris. Lynette?
Yep, so taking the 2 points in order, so the crossing issue, again, we liaised with the Highway Authority in preparing this, and they've made some suggestions in relation to crossing, and we're happy to accept conditions about improvements to what's existing. And so I think that's that issue. We've discussed that with them throughout the process. In relation to public open space, again, this is outline application, but we have, as I said, I think in my speech, that there is a commitment to public open space and including a children's play area. So absolutely, that would be part of any reserved matters coming forward. Would need to make sure that that amount of play space as a minimum is provided.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynette. Thank you, Harish. Councillor Mills-Penny, you've just said question, please. Is it to Lynette?
It could be, Lynette, please. I'm concerned about the pedestrian stroke cycle access to High Street. When we did the site visit, we did notice that there's a conflict with the existing access for the use of a storage and agricultural type setup there for lorries and vehicles. What plans, I haven't seen any plans as how you're going to resolve this and how that access is going to be designed for safety, because people will have push chairs, you could have people in electric scooters, cycles, children. Do you have an explanation as to how that's going to work, please?
Yes, absolutely. So that's a good question, because we have had similar conversations with the Highway Authority about exactly how you would manage that interrelationship between the yard, albeit the buildings are vacant, or they were certainly vacant recently. So yes, there would need to be a safe pedestrian route, and as part of any reserve matters application, the details of that would need to be finalised. So exactly how you would make sure that pedestrians and vehicles are separated, and also to make sure it's an attractive route through from High Street to the site. I suppose the other element as well is there is a planning permission for the change of use of those barns, those agricultural buildings, to residential, albeit not implemented, but that does exist as well. So if that were to come forward, then that would also reduce that conflict.
Thank you, Lynette.
Am I right in thinking, Lynette, that the access to those conversions uses the same element of the road, and that the farmhouse or farmyard storage site and these barn conversions aren't within LCC's control? And I just wonder how it's all going to work with the conflict and the ownership issues, because I think I recall that the conversions are to use that same access.
Are you able to come back on that, Lynette?
I mean, I don't really want to go into the whys and wherefores of another planning application that I've had nothing to do with. Simply that, having a residential use next to a residential site might be more sympathetic, but there is the highway access that's proposed. There is land that a safe pedestrian route from the site to the High Street could be delivered on. There is sufficient land within the red line that could be used to deliver that, a safe route for pedestrians, pushchairs and people between High Street and the site.
Thank you, Lynette. Okay, Penny?
No, not really. It doesn't actually answer my question.
I don't think Lynette can answer. I think she did. She said she's got no input into a separate planning application from a separate applicant. I think that's basically what she's saying. But presumably it can all be considered under reserved matters, Lynette, going forward, can it?
Absolutely, absolutely. And obviously the other permissions are, a part of the material consideration in the background in assessing this application and also in presumably making the allocation. So as a principle, I would hope that's already been considered. But yes, I wasn't involved in that scheme, so I'm aware of it, but I can't comment on the merits of it.
Bob, can I come back and debate on this then? Because I think Lynette's answered as much as she can.
Yeah,
Chairman,
okay.
Can I just add,
Or unless Phil can come in with something as well.
Well, we'll come to Phil, questions to Phil in a minute, if that's all right. Question to Phil. Councillor Reid to Councillor Woolley, not normally allowed, but happy to see what comes out of it. Robert?
Good afternoon, Councillor Woolley. My question to Sue is to ask her if she will join with me or allow me to support her with further requirements from highways. Chairman, the reason for this is that we are to receive or we were to receive on applications in the future the reasons why the conditions or the lack or no conditions have actually are coming forward within our future agendas. However, this one we have there's 30,000 for public transport. I get that, but we're going to need a traffic regulation order. And there is no money requested from highways to support a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit through Moreton. Now, collectively, we both know there is an application approved of the co-op of 22 entry-level houses, and now potentially these 71. So my question is to identify to Councillor Woolley the need for us to both lobby highways for a traffic regulation order to look into the feasibility of a 30-mile-an-hour that seems to be overlooked.com.
I would certainly welcome any support from anyone, I don't care who it is, to get a 30-mile-an-hour limit along that stretch of the A15. I just cannot understand why it's not been the case for many years. So thank you, Councillor Reid. I welcome your support.
Can I say, wearing my other hat, I think probably the first approach to this is to get the Lincolnshire Road Safety Partnership on our side where these are concerned, because county highways do tend to look more realistically, if that's the right word, if it has the support of the Lincolnshire Road Safety Partnership. So perhaps the three of us together can take that forward through that vehicle.
Thank you.
Good idea, Bob.
Okay, have we completed questions to Lynette and I won't say Councillor Woolley, because we really shouldn't be asking speakers of questions, etc. So if there are no further questions to Lynette, can I say thank you for joining us, Lynette, and thank you for the contribution and answers to questions. Thank you very much indeed. Look forward to seeing you again. Okay, we move on to questions now to the case officer, Phil, and...
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm at the top, Mike. I never put my name on it.
It is actually, your name is on it, Mike, and yes, you were the one I was going to call on. So, Councillor Exton, Mike, to the case officer, please.
Yeah, can I just make a quick remark regarding this the highways? I've been banging on about this for 3 or 4 years, as you'll remember, Bob. But my question is regarding the 106 agreements. It's just a clarification, really, on all the what they're going to give. Is the actual way of doing it, does it still go back to the chairman and vice chairman for signing off, or has that been removed?
I did sign 1 or 2 off, Mike, when I first took over the chair nearly 2 years ago, but I haven't seen any recently. Phil, perhaps we haven't had any, I don't know, to sign off.
You know, because it's not listed it's normally listed in the paperwork.
Yes, there's chairman and vice chair to sign off. Do we go to the legal side of that, or can Phil answer that? Or
I'm just looking in exactly what we put a standard recommendation in. It's in paragraph 11 of the main report. Approve the application subject to conditions and completion of a section 106 106 agreement.
Well, I can tell you 106 agreements are always signed off by the chairman, or used to be. Whether that is altered or not, I don't know.
Be interested to find out if it's been altered. You know, why hasn't it? Why haven't we been informed?
Yeah, I mean
the procedure.
I think we'll have to pick up on the signing off aspect of it, but certainly what the provisions of the recommendation in paragraph 11 say is that we essentially have 12 weeks to conclude the legal agreement with the developer and get that signed, and we wouldn't issue the decision notice until that was actually done. And if that went beyond the 12-week period, and unless we agree a further extension, because of extenuating circumstances, then we would be in a position to refuse the application. So there is a mechanism there to ensure it gets done, but whether it actually gets signed by the chairman, Councillor Exton, I'll have to come back to you on that for the next meeting, if that's okay.
It's just the legal side.
Is Shelley able to answer?
Thank you.
Shelley?
Sorry, Chairman.
Is Mandy Braithwaite still with us? Because she ought to be able to answer that.
I say yes, I think Mandy would probably be the best person to give advice on that specific matter. She does appear to still be in the meeting.
Can you hear me, Mandy? Mandy?
Sorry, Chairman, I am here. Can you see and hear me now?
I can hear you and we can now see you, yes.
Right, I had a few difficulties. Can you just repeat that question, please? Because it was intermittent with my internet.
Yeah, the question was, do the Chair and Vice Chair, are the Chair and Vice Chair of Planning still required to sign off 106 agreements?
Yes, they are. In accordance with the minutes, if we grant planning permission, it is subject to completion of the Section 106 agreement. And as far as I'm aware, once legal get notification that we're due to complete and the documents all signed and dated, that's sent to planning, and then it should have Chair and Vice Chair sign off before the permission is granted.
That's what I thought. Does that answer your question, Mike?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Thank you, Mike. It's always good to keep track of these things and refresh our minds on them. Thank you. Question, Penny, was that to Lynette? Penny Milnes? Okay, I'll move on. David Bellamy, question to Phil, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to ask the office of Phil, please, would it be appropriate to condition the safe access down onto the high street, bearing in mind it is within the red line of the development?
Yeah, so I mean, that's a good way of a good question that brings out an answer I was going to give to an earlier point with the questions to Lynette. I've just been looking at the plans and I was trying to refresh my memory. That access that goes through the farmyard is over 6 metres wide, so it's about 6.5 metres wide, so there's plenty of width there to segregate a vehicular access from a dedicated pedestrian and cycleway. Condition 8 of the in the main report requires that before development commences, the applicant's required to submit full engineering, drainage, street lighting and construction details of all pedestrian and cycleways within the site. So that's the condition that we've used as the mechanism for securing those details. So in terms of actually how that looks and works, you know, whether it's a different type of material or slightly raised as a traditional pavement would be, that would be the appropriate time to consider those details to make sure there's that segregation between what's for vehicular use and for pedestrian use.
Does that answer your question, David?
Yeah, just one other question. On point 534, would that be included in the conditions you was just talking about, Phil, please?
534.
Do drop curbs at the entrance to the site.
Top of page 180, Phil.
Yeah, I think, just let me,
It just says would be desirable to provide drop crossings with tactile paving at the point where the proposed access road crosses. For PF is, I think it should say FP41, shouldn't it? PF41, top of page 180, Phil.
yeah, so condition 18, no part of the development shall be permitted to be occupied before works to improve the public highway by means of the installation of tactile paving have been completed. So effectively, condition 18 picks up the requirement for those highway improvement works to be done before any of the houses are occupied.
Okay, Phil.
Yeah,
sorry, David.
Yeah, in the report, I think it mentioned that where the high street was, but not necessarily on the entrance to the site. I think it says pavement, is it 541 or something or other?
So I'm just checking what the paragraph number you're referring to is
5.534.
So 534.
Top
Yeah,
of page.
I think that reference there to the tactile paving point.
Yeah, PF 41, isn't it?
Yeah, I think a combination of those two conditions that I've read out, condition 8 and condition 18, the tactile paving would be where it actually the crossing point of the high street, and then the other details within the red line where it crosses the public footpath, which is the public footpath that runs directly through that existing farm access. And again, condition 8 would allow us to pick up exactly what that the detail of the materials and engineering details and so on look like.
Okay, Phil.
Yep, thank you.
Obviously something to watch as we go through the reserve matters, Phil. Yep.
Yep.
Okay, moving on. Speaking debate is Phil Dilks. Jackie Smith, is that speaking debate, Jackie, or do you want to ask Phil Jordan a question? That's Jackie Smith.
It's a bit of both, really.
Can you deal with your question and then we'll move on to debate in a minute or two?
And it goes back to the 106 agreements.
Right.
I think it is something that we have sort of stood beside for a long time. Is it possible to start putting more information about the 106 into the planning, once they've got the planning agreement, make that a part of it? Because I've come across quite a few people and they've said, oh, well, nobody ever asked us for it. So we could be losing some money for green areas and things like that.
I think what you're asking, and is something that's cropped up not so long ago, was are we following through 106 agreements, and are we ensuring that we get the money off developers at the trigger points? Is that the
Yes, I have raised that, Bob, in the first case.
Yeah, I understand from Robert that is being looked at. I know some years ago we had a very efficient lady who went back for years and got a lot of money in that 106s. But yeah, Robert is well aware and has got it in hand to make sure we don't lose out, Jackie.
We are monitoring that as a point of information through the new housing board with regular updates at the moment. There's only one application which we've had to salvage. Okay, Jackie?
Yep, okay, fine.
Thank you. Penny, two questions to Phil Jordan. Penny?
Yes, I think one he's sort of answered about the footpath. I'm now going to ask about how we ensure we get the reserve matters that we actually want after the Barraby situation, and Robert might be able to answer this as well. I mean, how do we ensure the level of affordable housing? I know we can have up to 30%, but if it goes way beyond, how do we ensure that mix of housing? How do we ensure the design principles? Because I believe this site is going to be sold. And I'm just wondering how we are going to condition this so that we actually have control over the reserve matters when they come in.
Okay, Phil?
Yeah, I mean, we have control over the reserve matters by the fact it requires an application. So we have to consider any details of anything that fits within those reserve matters. So landscaping, quite obvious, you know, what that includes. That's both the soft and the hard landscaping. That also includes boundary treatments. And if it's not, you know, acceptable, then we would be in a position to refuse the application. And the process for achieving good design at the reserve matter stage, we're in a much stronger position than we have been, I think, probably the whole time we've been operating with design pad and an in-house design officer and so on. Likewise, appearance, which covers the actual details of materials, the way the houses are designed, scale, that would cover the point that was raised about bungalows. Are they going to be 2-storey, 2.5-storey, and so on? And we've got policies that require an appropriate mix. The question about the affordable housing is, you know, I was listening to the debate earlier on the Barraby scheme, and the legal agreement requires a minimum of 30% affordable housing. It's generally not seen as a bad thing. You know, it's a good thing if affordable housing's exceeded. And whilst I understand the sort of the concerns and the reservations about these affordable only schemes, I think one of the points I would make is that these affordable only schemes usually end up with about 60% housing in ownership anyway. The way those schemes are sort of promoted is they often do them as a shared equity product and then allow people to sort of staircase out of that shared equity. So even where you have these affordable only schemes that start off as everything being affordable, often to all intents and purposes they end up as market housing anyway. And again, they you know, through the design process, they should be designed to be tenure blind anyway, which you know, that's the I think the perception of what affordable housing is and what it looks like as being a distinctly, you know, cheaper or different product it's a little bit outdated, if I'm honest. And you know, through our design process, we would be looking to ensure that, you know, if it was 30% affordable housing in this scheme, or whether it exceeded that to all intents and purposes, you wouldn't be able to tell which were the affordable homes anyway through good design. The fact they're affordable, I mean, again, that when you say 100% affordable housing, as well as the points I've made about the different variations within that, only a small number are typically sort of the social rented product. Some of them are a discounted rented product, and again, much of them are actually routes to home ownership. So yeah, so hopefully that provides a bit of sort of an answer to those questions.
Okay, Penny.
Well, I just feel we apparently lost control of Barraby, and I don't want us to lose control again, and that's all I'm looking at. I don't have an outdated image of affordable housing, and I just feel that when we give these outline applications, we're not absolutely clear. You know, we get these plans that show a lovely layout and all this, and then when it comes to reserve matters, it's something completely different.
and we don't seem to have any control. It's the control I'm looking at. What can we do? I think Robert's looking into it as well, aren't you, Robert? And but this is important, isn't it, to ensure that the reserve matters come up to the expectations.
Okay, it's really in debate now as opposed to direct questions. But I will let Robert come back on that. Councillor Reid, Robert, on this control of reserve matters.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Phil Jordan just to help me make a simile here for as a point of information. We have reserve matters on Elsie Park with the zones, and they are integrated within the 106 agreements through the design statements and the reserve matters application. So I'm calling upon Phil to hopefully endorse that I'm right in the simile, and that should give some assurance in what will happen with this development as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose just taking a step back, the question about control is we have full control over reserve matters because it requires an application. For major development at the moment, we're bringing all reserve matters back to committee, and essentially if the reserve matters isn't of a high enough quality, we can refuse it reasonably with the design policies in the plan. The questions about bigger schemes like Elsie Park and the other mechanisms for securing design, you can have conditions requiring a design code or a design brief, and generally that's put in place for the much bigger schemes where you get multiple house builders. So for example, the schemes at Poplar Farm on the edge of Grantham or Elsie Park in Bourne, and what you want to avoid there is you want some continuity between the different house builders who tend to just want to put in their standard house types, and so it can be more important then to look at these stronger design policies that ensure that continuity. But in this case, with it being a scheme for 71 homes, the expectation would be that it would be sold and purchased by one house builder. If the site was split, we still can, you would still have to consider two separate reserve matters applications, and it would be down to officers and ultimately committee to ensure that the design was of a good enough standard to have that continuity.
And going back to Barrowby, Penny, I think we lost that by virtue of not having a master plan. Not saying where that scenario lies, but that is the crux of Barrowby, which we are fighting like mad to avoid happening in other places such as Rectory Farm and Poplar Farm, etc. So the key to these multi-sites is a master plan that all developers buy into. Okay, I'm going to move on. Now I'm going to move on to Helen Crawford, please.
Hello, thank you, Bob. If I could ask Phil, on page 187 regarding the 106 agreements, I mean, there's money put towards everything apart from the open space for children's play. Now, I hope that when it comes to it, they actually put some money there to provide play equipment for children. And I think we should have had the sum that they want to put in for play equipment there, but perhaps that can be put on reserve matters.
I can answer that question. So the way it works with children's play equipment is we either secure the provision on site or we seek a financial contribution for existing facilities off site. In this case, we've required they provide a certain amount of space on site, and if I'm reading the same part of the report that you're referring to, paragraph 7.10.2, yeah, there would be a requirement for 511 square metres of children's play space, but within the actual wording of the legal agreement, we would be more specific about what that should include, and normally what we would do is we specify the terminology of things like leaps and laps, and they're either a local equipped area of play or just a local area of play. In this case, 511 metres is a local equipped area of play space, and then the legal agreement actually defines what that is, and it's usually specifies, down to the detail of, the exact number of pieces of play equipment they should provide. And then that's an obligation on the future developer or house builder to actually do that by a certain trigger point. So yeah, there's no cash, as it were, in this one, but there will be a mechanism to ensure that the play equipment is provided into a good enough standard and size for the development.
Thank you very much for that, Phil.
And will that be itemised in the reserved matters, Phil, or taking Helen's point that there's no specific sum allocated?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of crosses over both, really, because you would look at the landscaping, and to a certain extent the layout details would include details of the actual play equipment, but then beyond that there'd be actually a legal obligation on them to A, leave the amount of space that they're required to do, and B, we can specify, like I say, down to 5 pieces of equipment, or it has to be a leap or a lap, that type of thing. So it's covered on sort of 2 bases, really.
Thank you, Phil. Can we move on, please, to Harish? A question to Phil.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Phil. I get totally confused with regards to these different design of houses. When we talk about affordable housing, is there a design difference between an entry-level housing, affordable housing, and also social housing? Because going to on page 183, paragraph 721A, where it says include a mix of socially rented, affordable rent, intermediate rent, and intermediate market housing appropriate to the current evidence for local need. So there's 3 different types of houses or rent, or the cost of it, I would say, if somebody wants to live each one of them. Is there a difference between them? You can definitely say this is a Morris Minor, this is a Morris Oxford, and this is a Morris Princess.
Yeah. I think Phil made the point earlier that you can't tell the difference between one house or another. But
that's what we're always trying to achieve. But the difference is in the tenure type, and so that's again, that detail or the parameters of that detail are secured by the legal agreement based on whatever the market or the housing need is at the time. So within that 30%, there would be a requirement that a certain number would be, as the advice says in the report, there would be a requirement for an element to be socially rented, or there could be affordable rent, intermediate rent. There would be some, or there could be some just sort of shared equity or discounted market rate properties, and all that detail. That's just about the tenure. So it's how the houses are purchased, or how the occupier actually goes about living in it. And like I say, that detail is all secured by the legal agreement. Again, the question about entry-level housing, which we spoke about before, again, that is an affordable house. It's just a different type of product, and that's specifically one aimed at first-time buyers. And again, the legal agreement for those schemes puts in certain provisions and mechanisms that require it only to be sold or rented by someone looking for a house for the first time. But yeah, physically to look at, there should be no difference whatsoever.
Thank you, Phil. So we move on to Will. Are you wishing to? Yeah, Will Richards, you wish to speak? Are you with us, Will?
Sorry, I've unmuted. I beg your pardon. Thanks, Chairman.
No problem.
Yeah, it's just going back to the point Councillor Milnes made about losing control of affordable, or as you say, social housing. I detect this as a theme running through debate on affordable housing, and I think it's a valid, a point that members make really, and it's usual to have affordable housing pepper potted in a community, not sort of just a mass block. It's more sort of acceptable generally. But the point I was going to make, and this is for future consideration, the affordable or the tenure is a matter, as we heard earlier, that can be discussed or agreed at reserved matters. But in terms of affordable housing, we can determine and control this at the outline stage. And I think that's the concern of members, that outline approval may be granted, and then further down the line, then there are various things such as affordable housing and the quantum of that, which is beyond what was anticipated by members. And so the principle is this, that you can determine, or you can agree with the developers under Section 106 a minimum of affordable housing percentage. You can also determine a maximum as well. I don't see why that can't be applied. Interesting concept, but it has been done. So you could, for example, say there should be a minimum of 30% affordable housing, but no more than a maximum of 45. So at least it doesn't run away with you and become 100%. That needs looking into. It's a bit sort of last minute to discuss it at this stage, but that's something that members can consider for the future. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Will. There are no more members wishing to ask questions of Phil, so we can move on to debate.
I think it's me.
Sorry?
I think it's me.
Who's me? Oh, Phil. Sorry. Okay. How dare I miss you? Yes, Phil.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, but I thought it was so long ago, and I put my debate request in when I thought the questions had been exhausted. But obviously others came in with very, very valid questions later. Mr. Chairman, may I first just clarify my question to the applicant's agent on the speed limit was meant to infer support for Councillor Woolley's call for road safety measures on the A15. Can I just say that that's my prime concern about this application is road safety, and I heard Phil Jordan in answer to one of the questions, and I didn't want to indicate to ask another question, but Phil mentioned, I think you said, Phil, that the high street sort of access, if I can call it that, just being a footpath, is 6.5 metres wide. How wide does it need to be for a car, for a vehicle access? And I'm not entirely convinced that, for a site that is going to supply this large number of houses and presumably be feasible and profitable, that I'm not convinced that we haven't exhausted the options to get the access off the A15 and on that village street, which would be, I am sure, a lot safer. I'll leave that standing at the moment and move on to my next sort of point is, I am concerned, I asked about the, are we happy that this is safe? And really, it is really the applicant, or it's the Highways Agency, or part of the applicant's organisation, i.e. the County Council, that is effectively telling us that don't worry, it's safe. That does concern me, I've got to say, and overall, we talked about the speed limit, quite rightly, and I support moves to reduce the speed limit through this particular village, but almost every planning committee meeting that we hold, we feed more vehicles because of the permissions that we give to build more houses, we feed more vehicles onto the A15. Almost every planning meeting that we have. And we always sort of question, you know, what's it doing to the, or I question, what's it doing to the A15? And it's making the A15, you know, a real problem stretch of road in that area, in the area south and north of Bourne, I've got to say. And each time, of course, highways have nothing to say and don't object, particularly when it's one of their own applications, no doubt, but they don't object because the criteria under, I think, MPPF is severe impact on that road. Well, I'm not arguing, and nobody would argue that, you know, just 71 houses is going to create severe impact onto the A15. But there has to come a tipping point at some point. And I know that some years ago, and I think it was before MPPF, we were talking about it earlier about MPPF and the traffic things when we were looking at Stamford. A few years ago, we had an application, I think earlier this year, from Langtoft that thankfully was turned down, but we couldn't turn it down on highways grounds because highways didn't object. But in an earlier application, pre-MPPF, an application for the same site had been turned, or a similar site, had been turned down purely on highways grounds and the fact that it was going to feed too much traffic into the A15. Well, all that's happened since then is that the A15 has become much, 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 much busier, that sort of A15 corridor. If I can just say, make one last point, and it is on affordable homes. I just wonder, 2 points. I wonder if we'd had this application first, whether it would have changed anything on the exception site across the road. I suspect it probably would have done. I also wonder if at some point in the future, when the future purchasers of this site have moved to the reserve matters, whether they're going to come back and say, oh, we don't need the affordable homes now because they've been provided across the road in this exception site. And one very last point, I take what Will is saying about exceptions, about pepper potting the affordable homes. That certainly is the policy, or I hope it is the policy. But what blows a hole in that is not this application, but what blows a hole in that is the exception sites where they go for 100% affordable homes, which is, you know, no pepper potting at all. Thank you. So I'm still not entirely decided on this one. I've got to say I may abstain. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Jackie Smith, you indicated earlier you wish to ask a question and speak. Do you still wish to speak? Jackie Smith?
I'd asked already, sort of incorporated it in something.
Okay, Jackie. Lovely, thank you. Councillor Bellamy, Will, do you want to come in now, or there's one or two more members wish to speak? Do you want to come in now or leave it till they've spoken?
Yeah, I'll come in at a later time, Chairman. Thank you.
So, Councillor Bellamy, David?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'll just like to support what Councillor Dilk said, well, and Councillor Reid earlier on about them, about the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. The only thing that I can't get my head around with highways is the disparity in conditions and levels and control measures that they've got in different villages. You'd expect some sort of parity between like villages on A roads or B roads, and for whatever reason in Lincolnshire there never seems to be that when there does in other counties. Just as one example, Corby Glen is on an A road, the same as Morton. It's got a school with a zebra crossing and a 30 miles an hour limit. I mean, I honestly cannot see what the difference is.
Well, all I will say is I think we need to make more use of the Lincolnshire Road Safety Partnership in making a case for these speed limits, etc. But that's obviously for another day. Councillor Crawford, Helen.
Hello, thank you, Chairman. I would like to support everything that the council have said on the highways. It seems to me that Lincolnshire County Council fails to listen to itself. The A15 through there is a noted red route, meaning it's dangerous. Yet they still want to put all the traffic out onto there, and they don't seem to realise what they're doing. They need to listen to themselves. You know, Lincolnshire Road Safety Partnership, they agree that it's a red route. So why are they not listening to themselves alone, let alone everybody else? I quite agree, it should be a 30-mile-an-hour limit. That's all I've got to say, really. Thank you.
Okay, we'll see what we can do with a united front where county are concerned. Councillor Milnes, Penny, wishing to speak?
Yeah, very quickly, I support all that on the A15, but I am coming back to this footpath access. I'm not happy that it's all going to work out very well. I haven't seen any details of how this is going to work out, and there is conflict with lorries and more motorised access there. I'm also concerned, and I'm very grateful to Will, thank you very much, for saying that we can at the outline stage do a little bit more about what we expect to see on a site to keep control, and pepper potting the affordable, for example, and trying to avoid 100% seems a good idea to me on a site for 70 houses. As you say, we've already approved 22 entry-level houses in Morton across the road, and I would like to see us add some conditions onto this to that effect. I'd also like to see that we add our design guide conditions as well, because again, we see a pretty picture at this stage, and then when it comes to reserved matters with a different purchaser applicant, we get something else. And that happened again in Barrowby. So is that possible? Can we do that to make it, keep a little bit more control over what happens next? And how we're going to sort out that footpath, I'm not quite sure. And the road, I mean, you know, why does it have to go out onto the A15? It's way beyond the village bounds, isn't it, to have an access road coming out there? It's not even within the village, and why that's acceptable, I mean, I know a mystery surrounds highways. Well, maybe not, it's a mystery, you know, they just never object to anything, but I must say they're all very serious concerns for us, aren't they?
Okay, Penny, thank you for that, Penny. I'm going to ask Will now, and he might wish to refer to the remarks just been made. Will? You need to mute yourself, Will. Oh, sorry, unmute yourself.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, just a few points on the highway issues. I think we again, I'm a bit like a parrot repeating myself, but we are governed by the comments of the highways officers here. And in terms of affordable housing, going back to Councillor Milne's point, that could be controlled necessarily by condition, but by, as I was saying earlier, by Section 106. And the Section 106 agreement, the agreement, that's the key to it all. It should be done by agreement. And so that is the way forward, but it requires a developer that would see it that way. In terms of a developer, it would be more attractive financially to keep the number of social housing down, because they would make obviously more profit on with more market housing. Just a final point, again for the future possibly, when we are looking looking at affordable homes and trying to sort of control at the outline stage. Going back to the points that Councillor Reid made, very valid points, and you, Chairman, the question of need, that study is long overdue in as much as we know how much affordable housing is required in a district. In the district as a whole, but in terms of settlements, that's something that needs to be established, and I'm sure that will help us for the future. But in terms of the report that Phil has put forward, I commend you to the recommendations. But again, it's a matter for you as members, and I have full respect for your decisions.
Thank you for that, Will. There's no more speakers, etc., in debate and so on. So I'm going to move to a vote. Have we had a proposer and seconder? I'm sorry, I might have lost the thread here a bit. If we haven't, is there anybody ready to propose that we approve the application conditionally?
Yes, Chairman, I'm happy to do that. I think the affordable homes is something that is going to really, to be resourceful and constructive, will have to be outside of the debate of this particular application, and I will rely on design intervention within reserved matters to actually see that the affordable housing is even and of design by means of quantity of number of bedrooms to the local need as much as we can tailor it to be. So there's my proposal.
Thank you,
it
Robert.
Doesn't have any wording to change it.
No.
And I'll second it.
Is that Jackie? Jackie Smith?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Jackie. So can we move to the vote, please, Susan?
Certainly. Can I just check that there's everyone can vote on this matter?
As far as I'm aware, yes, it's the first time this has been heard.
Thank you. We're considering application S19/1784 and the recommendation is for approval. If you can indicate whether for or against or abstain. Thank you. Councillor David Bellamy?
For.
Councillor Harish Basna Singh?
Abstain. Thank.
Councillor Helen Crawford?
For approval.
Councillor Phil Dilks?
Abstain.
Then Councillor Mike Exton?
Abstain.
Abstain. Councillor Penny Milnes?
Abstain.
Councillor Robert Reid?
For.
Councillor Mrs Rosemary Cabery-Brown?
Rosemary, are you there? Councillor Cabery-Brown, Rosemary?
She might be on mute.
No, move on, Susan.
Councillor Jackie Smith?
For.
Councillor Judy Smith?
For.
Councillor Bob Adams?
For. Councillor Cabery-Brown, Rosemary, are you with us? There's no indication she's lost connection, so...
So far there is 6 members for and 4 abstentions.
So that is good.
Mr. Chairman, could my vote be recorded as abstaining, please?
Yes, I'm sure it can. Not a problem with that, Phil.
Okay.
To be recorded, yeah.
That application is approved. So if we now move on to the final one, 1192. This is in the hands of, and I hope I pronounce this right, Shika Dasani.
Chairman, if I could interrupt, are the legal advisors swapping positions now, please?
Yes,
Sorry,
Chair.
Shelley.
Chairman, it's Mandy. Can we swap legal advisors now, please? Martha is able to return for the last item.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Yes, Mandy, thank you.
I'll make sure that Martha is in before I leave.
Thank you, Mandy, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Chairman. I think your pronunciation of Sheikah was spot on, but I'll be presenting the application on behalf of Sheikah, who's the case officer for this.
Thank you, Phil. Before you go on, is Martha with us now, please?
I am, Chairman.
Thank you, Martha. Fire away, Phil.
So this final application on the agenda is S201192, erection of 14 industrial units at Spitfire Park in Market Deeping. So the key issues with this development, principle of development, the impact on the character of the area and impact on neighbouring properties. Members may recall, I'm trying to remember the exact date, but I think about 12 months ago we considered an application on this site and granted permission for 7 industrial units under reference S19-1106. Again, members may recall that there was a long history to the site for industrial uses, and at that time there was an extant planning permission for a more intensive and larger scale industrial building on the site. Adjacent to the site to the east, there's a residential development of 240 dwellings, and that site's currently under construction. The houses which abut the boundary of this site, some of those are largely complete now, and I believe are occupied. The land to the west of the site is currently undeveloped, but that does benefit from an outline consent for further employment development. So this site essentially sort of straddles land between employment uses. It's got an existing employment use and an existing employment permission itself, and then where the residential uses start to the east. So this plan here shows the site in context, really. What it doesn't show is where my cursor is here. This is where the new housing is currently under construction, and then as you're looking at the screen to the left of the screen, this is where the employment consent is. Sort of a fairly important point I think here to make is the red line of this site is slightly smaller than the permission that was previously granted under S19. It excludes some of this land here just to the south, but the important thing to note is that if this new permission is granted, because it relies on land from the previous permission as well, it wouldn't be possible to implement both of those permissions alongside each other. The land further to the south of the site, again, that has some existing industrial buildings and is currently occupied and in use. So again, here you can just see the site in a bit more context, obviously excluding some of this new development that's taken place to the east. So this is the layout of the scheme as proposed. You have the access road coming in here to the north. Whilst there's 14 industrial units, it's all housed in one building. This single building being smaller in scale than the 7 industrial units that were previously approved, both in terms of the overall square meterage of the footprint and also the height of the building. And it's also notable, and I'll be able to show this on the next slide, that the development's now been pulled away from this boundary with the residential properties. And on this plan you can see sort of shaded in there where those residential properties are and where their rear gardens are in relation to this site. So yeah, this was the most recent application that was approved and is still extant. And again, you can see, particularly here to the south, you had this building that abutted quite close or very close up to the boundary of these residential properties, and then this gable end of this of the second of the buildings, which again was tight up against the boundary itself. So here's this is a photo looking into the site, and again you can see those where the construction now is and how close that is in relation to the site. That shows it quite well there. This is the building itself. If you look in the sort of top right of the screen, the elevation there, which has got the lower aspect to it, that lower eaves height is the one that would be closest to the residential properties, but it wouldn't be directly up against that site boundary as it was previously. But this is now reduced in height from the height of the eaves of the building and the gable end that was there previously. So in a bit of an evaluation to cover those points really. So although there's now 14 units proposed, they're smaller in size than the 7 that were previously approved. The previous permission on the site has the warehouse closer to the dwellings which have now been built. There's broad policy support for the scheme under both the local plan and the MPPF. There was a request for details of the cycle storage area which have now been included on the layout plan. The residential amenity is now better than the current situation under the extant approval. There's no flood risk concerns, no highway concerns, and therefore the application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chairman. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Phil. Before inviting questions, can you sort of confirm to me that if we approve this, the previous planning consent for S191106 is void, or does it need a clause in the conditions that they are, whatever the legal term is, not going ahead with that? Nothing to indicate that in the report, as far as I can see, Phil, one way or the other.
No, I mean the existing permission would remain extant. It would be the fact that they couldn't both be implemented or a mixture of the two because they both rely on the same land. But if this permission was granted and then subsequently implemented, that previous consent would fall away. But there's nothing to sort of, prevent that previous application being implemented. The only means really of doing that would be to secure that by a legal agreement, and my view is that wouldn't be reasonable to do that under the tests of what we can do with a legal agreement. Normally we would seek to quash a permission if, by granting the new permission, say for a house that had been approved in the countryside, and then they were seeking to, for example, move the location of that house, we wouldn't want a position where they were left with 2 separate permissions and they could implement both of them. But in this case, they could do one or the other, but they couldn't do both, if that answers the question.
Well, sorry, that's not been difficult, Phil, but have you not contradicted yourself there? Because if that planning permission still remains as a valid one, they could either do it or do a combination of both. I mean, the whole point of coming back to this, the current application, is to make it more acceptable to the residents living nearby. And I'd have thought it wouldn't have been unreasonable to get some sort of surety that the applicants will not look to try and develop the existing permission, or even do a mixture of both.
I'll let you just come in. I'll just make the point again that they certainly can't do both because
a mixture of both.
No, they can't do a mixture of both because there's sort of this case law that's established where the schemes effectively overlap and rely on the same land. If one's implemented, then it isn't possible to implement the second permission alongside it or as a combination. But if they if this, I mean, let me put it this way, if this gets granted permission, they could still implement the previous consent. But if we refuse this application, they would only be able to implement the previous consent.
Yeah, but we've not. If we grant this one, we've not got any control if they want to go ahead and do the first permission, have we? Or have we?
No, we haven't. But we haven't if we refuse the application either.
Well, no, I mean this application makes more sense than the first one from the point of view of residents. So why don't we do as much as we can to make it watertight that the first permission can't be implemented? Perhaps Will can answer that one, Phil. Sorry.
And the legal representatives asked to us make
Martha,
a comment on that as well. So
sorry, Martha.
Happy to pass over to either Will or Martha.
Okay. Martha or Will?
No, go on, Martha, after you.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Will. Thank you, Phil. Chairman, there isn't anything that we can do to restrict the first permission, the S19/1106 that has been determined and approved as acceptable. That can be built out by the applicant if they so wish. They have put in this application now, which would be up for approval. It's up for determination, apologies, and if approved, they would have the choice to implement either. Applying common sense would assume because they have paid for this additional one, this is the one that they want. But it would be down to their choice to implement either, and upon commencing one or the other, the one not used, so to speak, falls away. But there's nothing that we can do to dictate that, as Phil set out, the mechanisms that we might be able to look at don't, such as the legal agreement, don't apply in these circumstances just because of the bespoke nature of what the two applications are. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. But I have seen in other applications where an application has come on the same site where we have taken some form of legal agreement which revokes the first application or the previous application. So I don't understand why it doesn't apply to this one.
Because here, whilst they have the choice to build out one or the other, they can only build out one of them. They would have
I understand that.
Choice.
I understand that. But the point of bringing forward this application is to mitigate the effect of what the first application would have had on nearby residents. And that's
sorry, Will, carry on.
No, I was just going to say, Chairman, the point of a Section 106 agreement is to mitigate the effects of that single particular application, the one that's under consideration. You can't, with a Section 106 on another application, introduce a Section 106 to mitigate something that was previously approved. So I concur with...
Sorry, Will, sorry to cut across you. We're not talking about a 106. I'm talking about a legal undertaking that the applicant gives, not to build out the first one.
Well, it's the same thing. A legal undertaking. That's what Section 106 is. It's a legal agreement between the council and the developer, and so for it to be binding, it would have to be an agreement signed by the developer and the council. Now, I agree with Martha, really, that the fact they've applied for this new application suggests that this is the one they're going to go for, but they have that right to decide which one to go for, which one to develop. But as Martha again says, once they start developing one of them, then the other one falls away. So unless the developer is prepared to sign a legal agreement, Section 106 agreement, to the effect that they're not going to develop the first one, we can't do anything about it, and it's not reasonable for a council to require that because it's not mitigating anything to do with the current application. So it would be very difficult to get that agreement, I would have thought.
Thank you for that, Will. Not a great deal of comfort, but I'll shut up and move on. myself. Sorry, muted myself. Any questions to Phil, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I just realised.
Yes, Mike.
With the two applications, the first one we passed, and the second one we're debating now, is it the same number of units in both applications, or is the second one more units?
The second one is more units, but at a lower height. The problem with the first one was that the height of the buildings, the effect it was having on the local residents. Sorry, Bill.
Well, I think if I was a developer, I would plump for the second one. If you're going to get more units, you're going to get more profit. No.
Okay.
Any comments?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, the as well as being sort of lower in height as well, it's a lesser amount of overall floor space as well. It's a single building with less of a footprint than the two buildings that were previously approved.
Okay, I think I've exhausted that one. Speaking debate for Phil Dilks. Robert, is that speaking debate or? Okay, Councillor Dilks. Phil, then we're on to debate. There's no further questions from members.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. First thing I'd say is I've got to say I was absolutely horrified when I went down there on a site visit some time ago for the most recent application, and at that stage I'm pretty sure that they'd already got the extant permission for quite a tall building right on the edge of their property. And already we could see the new houses, part of the 240 houses going up next door. And you just thought, oh my goodness, you know, what are they going to have to put up with? And so how on earth we managed to give that permission with the 240 potential houses next door, frankly, is beyond me, but we did. That's hopefully a lesson to learn for the future. I welcome this application. I accept that if they have, you know, got an extant permission and they put in a new application, that they're likely to want to build the second one. And I hope that, and I have faith that what they've seen is they've seen the buildings going up next door, the houses, and that they've actually had second thoughts and hopefully are a little bit community minded and can realise that it was pretty intrusive what they had. It wasn't intrusive when it was planned because the houses weren't next door, but now they are there. I welcome the amendments effectively, or the new plan, which is far less intrusive, I think, to the housing estate. Because the units are smaller, albeit more of them, I suspect that will be, and I hope that will mean that they are less noisy, that they produce less noise because of the nature that you'd have in a smaller unit. As I say, it was right up against the eastern boundary, and it was a very high structure that they were going to build. This is clearly a compromise, and I really welcome it. And I think, and I'm going to propose it now quickly before anybody changes their mind and lets them go back to the old one. One final comment I will just make. I will propose it, but I noticed that the Town Council made comments about the bike storage, and I welcome what they're saying, that they wanted more prominent bicycle storage to encourage cycle usage and enhance security. I would just say, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you're aware of the in-joke I'm going to say, but I know where there's a good bike rack going spare in the middle of Market Deeping. I think the County Council put it there, Bob.
Thank you, Phil. I echo your sentiments, Phil. I was just concerned about the fact that they'd have the option to do one or the other and we lose control. But okay. Councillor Reid, Robert, to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. I was interested to listen to what my fellow councillor Dilks was going to actually come up with, to see if we might have had any mirror image of sort of agreement in what we might both be debating. Not far apart. I think the thing that particularly matters to me on this particular one is clearly defined in the additional information report, and it refers to item 30.13, that because of the change of criteria between B1 and the new wider E class, I mean, for goodness sake, I know exactly where this is going. How would we feel if we ended up with a restaurant there or a nursery there? You know, I mean, even in a recording, it beggars belief. So, I think I champion Phil Jordan in this criteria and the tightening up of keeping this concise and actually fit for purpose. So I'll support it. I'm happy to second it if Phil would like me to do that, if he wants to propose it on the basis of the criteria that's changed. There was a slight scare that what happens with this application upon this revision on what was the original application, but I believe that the last is the most current, and that would be the most law-abiding in any event anyway. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Robert. Phil has proposed it, and Councillor Crawford, Helen, has said she'd like to second that proposal. Do you wish to speak, Helen?
No, but if Robert wants to do it, that's fine. I'm just happy that it will go forward.
No, Helen, I do apologise. I would not want to overlook any of my fellow members, and I thank you all for your support.
Okay. I wouldn't like anybody to think that my comments were against the proposition. Quite the reverse. It was just, can we get some legal surety on them not being able to go back and build the previous consent. But I will take the reassurances from the officers and the fellow members. Thank you for that. So if we can move to, there's nobody else wishing to ask questions or to speak. So it has been proposed and seconded. So we'll move to the vote. Susan?
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just clarify that nobody doesn't qualify for this vote?
As far as I'm aware, everybody qualifies to vote.
Thank you. Application is S20/1192, and the proposal is for granting the planning. Councillor David Bellamy?
For.
Councillor Harish Bisnousing?
For.
Councillor Helen Crawford?
For.
Councillor Phil Dilks?
Enthusiastically for.
Councillor Mike Exton?
For.
Councillor Penny Mills?
For.
Councillor Robert Reid?
For.
Councillor Mrs Rosemary Cabrew Brown?
Chairman, if I could interrupt, I think we've lost Councillor Cabrew Brown. I'm not sure, but I think IT have confirmed that she's had actual internet issues today, so that may have prevented her from rejoining the meeting.
Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you. Councillor Jackie Smith?
For.
Councillor Mrs Judy Smith?
For.
Councillor Bob Adams?
Equally enthusiastically for.
That's resounding 10 in support. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. That concludes the official business. I'd be grateful if members would not dash off if they've got the time, just so we can have a quick chat among ourselves. Can I thank everybody for attending, for their support, thank the officers, speakers, etc., and formally close the meeting. Thank you.